Hello and welcome back to another episode of Untitled Reviews, where we're going to be continuing in the vein of laptops and taking a look at a laptop that must be one of the most eye-catching and rather intriguingly designed and built laptops that we've had the pleasure of getting our hands on. This is the Acer Aspire Vero. It has been built, engineered and designed with the environment in mind, and in places such as on the keyboard and the actual outer shell itself, it's comprised partially of some PCR plastics which are post-consumer recycled. And it may have been easy for Acer to get hung up on the design and not consider the actual spec sheet of this thing, but to be perfectly honest, the spec sheet of it also proves that it should be quite a capable mid-range laptop, with it packing an Intel Core i7-1195 G7, 16 gigs of RAM and a 512 gig SSD. Now, Acer are offering two versions of the Vero. This one that we've got here is the more expensive version that comes with a price tag of 849 quid. That's $899 for you Americans out there. Which arguably is pretty expensive for a mid-range laptop, but if it packs such a punch, then it may just be worth a go. Alongside this comes a base model, which offers an i5-1155 G7, as well as a slightly turned down spec sheet with 8 gigs of RAM and a 256 gig SSD, and that's going to run you about $700 or €800. So for a laptop that looks fantastic and also packs a pretty good spec sheet, is it worth the outlay? So, onto the design front. What does the Aspire Vero look like? Well, what you'll notice here is that it's where it's on this particular point where the Vero sets itself apart from the rest of the competition. Other laptops that we've taken a look at in the past are usually your silvers and dark greys, and they're made of some nice aluminium outer shells. Acer, on the other hand, have gone for something, firstly, a little bit more plastic, but also something, as I say, a little bit more environmentally friendly. You'll find that it offers up a speckled kind of plastic shell in a colour that Acer are calling volcanic grey, which is sure to catch the eyes of passers-by or people on the train, as, to be honest, there's not really many laptops that come close, not for this price, that come to look so good. As I said in the introduction, the body is comprised partially of post-consumer recycled plastics, which is also declared by the little engraving in the corner that you'll be able to see when we talk about the keyboard. One thing I will say, though, is that whilst it looks fantastic, the fact it's plastic by comparison to some of the more metal-based laptops out there means it can feel a little rough. It's also not the lightest of laptops, weighing in at around 1.8 kilos, putting it on the heavier side. But it is, and it is also quite thick. But with that being said, 1.8 kilos for a 15.6-inch laptop actually isn't so bad. And it is still pretty light enough to carry around in a rather substantial rucksack. On the front of speakers, the Vero does opt for something a little bit more standard in comparison to its design by offering two downward firing units placed on the base of the laptop, as you'll see from the footage rolling around on the screen at the moment. As mid-range laptop speakers go, these sound pretty decent, and I also thought they had a little bit of a low-end punch, which is rather nice. The fact they're downwards firing when placed on the right surface can be pretty good, just for creating a bit of kind of reverberation and atmosphere, if you like, but do note that sound could become a little bit muffled if you choose to place the Vero on a softer surface, like if you're working on your bed, for instance, if you're a student at university. And on the front of the keyboard and trackpad, the Vero also impresses. Now, what you'll notice is that this is a slightly fudged US layout. You've got the full normal size layout keyboard with some slightly smaller up and down arrow keys, which the keyboard itself feels nicely tactile and responsive, and it's also backlit, as you'll see from kind of the footage that we're showing now. Although one thing that I do have to say that is a little bit fiddly is that the number pad is perhaps a little bit squashed on that far right hand side, and that could result in some slightly mishit inputs. It wasn't necessarily a big problem for me, but it's just something to be wary of if you do decide to pick this laptop up. And by contrast, the trackpad here is positively massive. And what you'll find is that it's got some really nice accurate tracking and some rather clicky tactile buttons, which is always rather satisfying and fun to use. There is also support for Windows Hello included on the Vero, thanks to the fingerprint sensor. that is actually integrated into the trackpad. You'll see like there's a little kind of black rectangle in the top left corner of the rounded trackpad, and that's your fingerprint sensor. It's probably one of the best places that you could have put it, really, because sometimes reaching over into the top right or the top left of the laptop can be a little bit needless if you want to keep your fingers on the trackpad for once you're into your laptop. There is also, as I say, support for facial Windows Hello thanks to the 720p webcam. You'll hear a little bit more about that in the display section. Now, when it comes to ports, the Vero's slightly thicker chassis does at least mean that it can fit some of the slightly taller or otherwise awkward shaped ports within its ranks. On the left-hand side, you'll find, intriguingly, an Ethernet port alongside one USB Type-C 3.2, an HDMI port, and two USB 3.2 Type-A's. On the right-hand side, you'll find a Kensington security lock, a USB 2 port, and a headphone combi jack. Now, it's fair to say that Acer haven't actually skimped out, and things like Ethernet and HDMI are a pretty nice inclusion, not least for the latter being a legacy port, which other manufacturers like Apple are just coming out of the dark of and including on their laptops again. Having an Ethernet port is also pretty handy too. A lot of other laptops that I've taken a look at in the past haven't necessarily included this. So if you are somebody who wants to get the benefit of a more stable and arguably faster connection through a hardwired one, then Acer do provide you with the option. So what about the Vero's display then? Does that wow the crowds like its design? Well, Acer have gone for something a little bit more standard issue here. What you'll find, like the HP Pavilion 15 that we've taken a look at in the past, is a 15.6-inch Full HD panel that, as you'll see from the wildlife footage rolling around, offers up some relatively decent colours and plenty of screen space for day-to-day working. One thing that's also worth noting here is that the bezels on offer are relatively narrow on the sides and the top. But the one on the bottom, as arguably expected, can be pretty thick. What you will find, though, is there's a standard 720p webcam that will work for all your video conferencing needs. Now, as I say from the wildlife footage rolling round, this is a relatively decent all-round display, but with 250 nits of brightness in uber bright lighting, it can be a little bit dim, and therefore, as a result, colours can appear a little flat. It kind of falls short of the 300 nit target for most decent laptops worth their salt. But for most scenarios, as I say, there isn't actually anything wrong with the panel on the Vero, and you're sure to find it pretty passable for day-to-day antics. But what about performance? On that side, how does the Vero perform? Well, under the environmentally sustainable hood, you'll find that the Vero packs a pretty damn good punch for a mid-range laptop, with the top-of-the-line Intel Core i7-1195 G7 processor, alongside their latest run of Intel Iris Xe graphics, 16 gigs of RAM, and a 512 gig NVMe SSD. Now, in the real world, what this translates to is a pretty good overall user experience with a relatively quick processor that offers up some pretty good single and multi-core performance. 16 gigs of RAM mean you've got plenty of headroom for any kind of intense tasks, and if you do want to download Photoshop or Lightroom on the Vero, then you certainly could run that pretty damn well. The integrated graphics on the Iris Xe also contribute to this quite powerful laptop, and also means that you could use this for some light gaming, but we wouldn't suggest running Crysis on this laptop anytime soon. Let's put it that way. 512 gigs of storage, though, on this top-of-the-line model is plenty, actually, to be honest. It's a decent bit of capacity if you wanted to store all your files and programs, and as we know, some can be quite the storage hogs from time to time. It's not as stingy as other laptops that I've come across in the past, although maybe opting for something like a terabyte would have been a little bit nicer, because 512 is the current max capacity that's available on the Vero, which may not suit everybody. But here's hoping that they up it just a little bit in the future. And the SSD's read and write speeds are also pretty respectable, which do actually make it one of the snappier ones available on the market today. So when you're loading your files on and off and wanting to retrieve them quickly, Acer have got your back covered there too. Now, one final thing to note is that the Vero, if you do go out and buy one, does come pre-installed with Windows 11. Unlike other laptops where you'll have to wait until 2022 for an upgrade, you can get started with Microsoft's brand new operating system right now. Just from a personal perspective, Windows 11 feels a little bit smoother and looks a little bit sharper than Windows 10 does in my view. It does take a little bit of getting used to compared to the last generation, but once you're up to speed, then you're sure to find it a brilliant operating system, kind of full stop really. Whilst the good times have continued to roll for the Vero on the fronts of design, the port selection, the speakers and everything else in between, it's unfortunately on the point of battery life where the Vero was, by contrast, perhaps a little underwhelming. It's roughly going to last you about 7.5 hours in a kind of a complete working scenario when you've got a load of Office applications running, which to be honest is okay, but it's not going to set the world alight. Compared to other laptops that we've looked at on this channel, like Acer's own Chromebook Spin 713, which, whilst it is a Chromebook, offers up nearly double the battery life of this Windows 11 running machine. Compared to other mid-range laptops like the HP Pavilion 15, it sits okay compared to those, but if you are looking for battery life, and if battery life is of paramount importance to you, then you may want to kind of take your custom elsewhere. So, in conclusion then, should you buy Acer's Aspire Vero? Well, if you're somebody who's looking for a laptop that looks the part with quite a sleek, modern and environmentally friendly construction with some pretty good build quality, then the Vero certainly has you covered. That speckled volcanic grey outer shell really does look the part and is sure to turn a few heads if you whip the laptop out at any university lectures, for example. Also, if you're somebody who wants plenty of ports, both legacy and current, then Acer have got you covered. It's one of the nicest and most generous port selections I've seen on a laptop in a very long time, and maybe this signals a return to the days when manufacturers were kinder to their consumers as opposed to simply offering them a handful of USB-C ports. And also, if you're somebody who's looking for decent all-round performance, then the Aspire Vero has you covered. It's top-of-the-line Intel Core i7 processor, alongside its integrated graphics, 16 gigs of RAM and 512 gig SSD are certainly sure to float your boat, although do note you may fill that storage up a little bit quickly, so investing in some external storage may not be a bad shout, and you've certainly got the ports to do so. So to be brutally honest, in short, the Acer Aspire Vero is a fantastic looking laptop with brilliant levels of performance and a lovely port selection alongside a pretty hard-wearing plastic construction. It's a good overall laptop and does get a kind of Untitled Reviews recommends badge from us, but do note if you are looking for something with a slightly better display, brighter display and better battery life, then you may want to check out the other laptop reviews that we've got on this channel, because you're sure to find something that may float your boat. Now, all that I've really got left to say is that if you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and of course subscribe to the channel. To of course ring the notification bell so you don't miss any future uploads. To follow us on Twitter and indeed Instagram. Link should be appearing on the screen right about now. And, of course, down in the description there'll be a link to the Untitled merch store, where there's all sorts of things if you want to rep the Untitled brand, be it t-shirts, hoodies and zip hoodies as we're coming into the slightly colder weather, at least here in Britain anyway, alongside other things like mugs, wall art, canvas prints, and some pint glasses and stainless steel water bottles as well. So I'm sure you'll be able to find something down there that you like. It's down on Spring and they ship worldwide, which is absolutely fantastic. And also, if you like the kit that we feature in these videos, be it this fantastic and environmentally friendly Acer Aspire Vero laptop, or any of the other of the myriad of keyboards, mice, multimedia controllers, other laptops, microphones, headsets, and all sorts we've featured on this channel over the last couple of years. And there'll be Amazon links down in the descriptions of those respective videos where you can pick all that kit up. So, once again, thank you very much for watching.